Greetings to you all. Class 10, Prose, Unit 7, The Dying Detective. Arthur Conan Doyle. The detective Sherlock Holmes was seriously ill. He wanted to meet his assistant, Watson. He asked his landlady to get him. Watson was surprised to see the condition of his master. Was Watson able to save his master? Read on to know more about the underlying story behind Holmes' sickness. Mrs. Hudson, the landlady of Sherlock Holmes, came to me and said, "Mr. Holmes is dying, Mr. Watson. For 3 days he has been sinking, and I doubt if he will last another day. He would not let me get a doctor. I told him I could not stand it any more and would get a doctor. He replied, 'Let it be Watson then.' I was horrified, for I had not heard about his illness before. I rushed for my hat and coat. As we drove back, I asked her about the details. 'There is little I can tell you, sir. He has been working on a case down at Rotherhithe near the river and has brought this illness back with him. He took to bed on Wednesday afternoon and has never moved since. For 3 days neither food nor drink has passed his lips.' 'Why did you not call a doctor?' I asked. 'He wouldn't have it, sir. I didn't dare to disobey him.' He was indeed a sad sight. In the dim light of a foggy November day, the sick room was a gloomy spot, but it was the gaunt face staring from the bed that brought chill to my heart. His eyes had the brightness of fever, his cheeks were flushed, and his hand twitched all the time. He lay listless. 'My dear fellow,' I cried, approaching him. 'Stand back, stand right back,' he cried. 'But why? I want to help you,' I said. 'Certainly, Watson, but it's for your own sake.' 'For my sake?' I was surprised. 'I know what is the matter with me. It is the disease from Sumatra. It is deadly and contagious, Watson. That's it, by touch.' 'Good heavens, Holmes! Do you think this can stop me?' I said, advancing towards him. 'If you will stand there, I will talk. If you don't, you must leave the room,' said my master. I have always given in to Holmes' wishes, but now my feelings as a doctor were aroused. I was at least his master in the sick room. 'Holmes,' I said, 'you are not yourself, whether you like it or not. I will examine your symptoms and treat you.' 'If I am to have a doctor,' said he, 'let me at least have someone in whom I have confidence.' 'Then you have none in me.' 'In your friendship, certainly, but facts are facts, Watson. You are a general practitioner, not a specialist of this disease. If so, let me bring Sir Jabbermeek or Penrose Fisher or any other best man in London.' 'How ignorant you are, Watson,' he said with a groan. 'What do you know about Tarpaulini fever or the Black Formosa plague?' 'I have never heard of them,' I admitted. 'There are many problems of the disease in the East. I have learned that much during my recent researches, and during this course I caught this illness,' he said. 'I will bring Dr. Ainstree then,' I said, going towards the door. Never have I had such a shock when the dying man bolted the door and locked it, shouted in an uncontrolled way, and in a moment he was back in his bed. 'You won't have the key by force from me, Watson. Be here till 6 o'clock. It is 4 now. This is madness, Holmes, I said. Only 2 hours, Watson, then you can get a doctor of my choice. You can read some books over there. At 6 we will talk again. Unable to settle down to reading, I walked slowly round and round, looking at the pictures. Finally, I came to the mantelpiece, where among other things, I saw a small black and white ivory box with sliding lid. As I held it in my hand to examine it, I heard a dreadful cry. "Put it down, down at once, Watson," he said. "I hate to have my things touched. Sit down, man, and let me have my rest." Then I sat in silent dejection until the stipulated time had passed. "Now, Watson," he said, "have you any change?" "Yes," I replied. "How many half-crowns? Put them in your watch pocket, and all the rest in your trouser pocket. You will light the gas lamp, but it must be half on. You will have the kindness to place some letters and paper on the table within my reach. Now place the ivory box on the table within my reach. Slide the lid a bit with the tongs. Put the tongs on the table. Good. Now you can go and fetch Mr. Calverton-Smith of 13 Lower Buck Street." I was hesitant to leave him now. He was delirious. "I have never heard of the name," I said. "Well, he is the man who has the knowledge of this disease, but he is not a medical man. He is a planter. He lives in Sumatra, now visiting London. I didn't want you to go before 6, because you wouldn't have found him in his study. I hope you will be able to persuade him to come. You will tell him exactly how you have left me." He said, "You must tell him that I am dying. Plead with him, Watson." "I will bring him in a cab," I said. "No, you will persuade him to come and return before him. Make any excuse. Remember this, Watson." I saw Mrs. Hudson was waiting outside, trembling and crying. Below, as I waited for the cab, I met Inspector Morton of the Scotland Yard. He was not in his uniform. "How is he?" asked Inspector Morton. "He is very ill," I answered. I reached Mr. Calverton-Smith's house. The butler appeared at the doorway. Through the half-open door, I heard a man's voice telling the butler, "I'm not at home, say so." I pushed past the butler and entered the room. I saw a frail man with bald head sitting. "I'm sorry," I said, "but the matter cannot be delayed. Mr. Sherlock Holmes." The mere mention of his name had a different effect on the man. "Have you come from Holmes? How is he?" he asked. "He is very ill. That's why I have come. Mr. Holmes has a high opinion of you and thought you are the only man in London who can help him." The little man was startled. "Why?" he asked. "Because of your knowledge of the Eastern diseases," I replied. "How did he get it?" he asked. I told him everything. He smiled and agreed to come. Pretending that I had some other appointment, I left him. With a sinking heart, I reached Holmes' room. I told him that Mr. Smith was coming. "Well done, Watson," he said. "You have done everything that a good friend could do. Now you disappear to the next room and don't speak or come here." I heard the footsteps. I heard a voice say, "Holmes, Holmes, can you hear me? Is that you, Mr. Smith?" Holmes whispered, "You know what is wrong with me? You are the only one in London who can cure me." "Do you know the symptoms?" asked Smith. "Only too well, Mr. Smith," and he described the symptoms. "They are the same, Holmes," Smith said. "Poor Victor was a dead man on the 4th day, a strong and healthy young man. What a coincidence indeed." "I know that you did it," said Holmes. "Well, you can't prove it. Give me water, please." Holmes groaned. "Here," I heard Smith's voice. "Cure me, please. Well, about Victor Savage's death. You did it. I will forget everything. But cure me, I will forget about it." "You can forget or remember, just as you like. It doesn't matter to me." how my nephew died. Watson said you got it from the Chinese sailors. Could there be any other reason? I can't think. My mind is gone. Help me, pleaded Holmes. Did anything come by post? A box by chance on Wednesday? Yes, I opened it, and there was a sharp spring inside it. A joke, perhaps. It drew blood, said Holmes. No, it was not a joke, you fool. You have got it. Who asked you to cross my path? You knew too much about Victor's death. Your end is near, Holmes. I will carry this box in my pocket, the last piece of evidence. Turn up the gas, Smith, said Holmes in his natural voice. Yes, I will, so that I can see you better. There was silence. Then I heard Smith say, What's all this? Successful acting, said Holmes. For 3 days I didn't taste anything, neither food nor drink. There were footsteps outside, the door opened, and I heard Inspector Morton's voice. I arrest you on charge of murder, he said. If so, let me bring Sir Jasper Meek or Penrose Fisher or Holmes. There was a sudden rush and scuffle, followed by the clash of iron and sudden cry of pain. There was a click of handcuffs. Holmes asked me to come in. Sorry, Watson, I was rude to you. I undermined your capability as a doctor. It was just to get Smith here, and I didn't want you to know that I was not ill. But your appearance, I said, 3 days fasting, and the makeup did the trick. The coins? Oh, that was only to prove that I was delirious. He laughed. I need to eat now, Watson. Mr. Smith killed his nephew, and he wanted to kill me the same way to avoid imprisonment. I need to eat now, Watson. I think that something nutritious at Simpson's would not be out of place. And thank you, Watson, he said. About the author, Sir Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle, 1859 to 1930, was a British writer best known for his detective fiction featuring the character of Sherlock Holmes, which are generally considered milestones in the field of crime fiction. Doyle wrote 46 short stories featuring the famous detective. The story is narrated by the character Dr. Watson. Originally a physician, in 1887 he published A Study in Scarlet, the first of 4 novels about Holmes and Dr. Watson. In addition, Doyle wrote over 50 short stories featuring the famous detective. The Sherlock Holmes stories are generally considered milestones in the field of fiction. His notable works include Stories of Sherlock Holmes and The Lost World. Do you know Joseph Bell, 1837 to 1911? He was a lecturer in medicine whose detective approach to diagnosis inspired Arthur Conan Doyle's character Sherlock Holmes. The wider picture in Scotland at the time is set out in our historical timeline. Joseph Bell was born in Edinburgh. Thank you.